Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining. Maureen, should we go ahead and kick it off, or do we want to give it a minute? Looks like she may have just left. We'll give it another minute, and then we'll get started. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Okay, it's 1 past. We'll go ahead and kick it off. So thanks for taking time out of your day to join today's Tech Tuesday. We're going to be talking about the IDPA, the Integrated Data Protection Appliance. And I know there is a ton of conference calls and training calls going on right now, so definitely appreciate you taking time to join this one. So before we jump into the technology and the actual solution, I kind of wanted to level set on what we're seeing in the market right now. So one of the trends we're seeing is IT requirements being always on, connected, protected, and fast. And so in order to achieve these requirements that are being given to IT organizations and IT departments by their end user and their customer, requires digital transformation, and that digital transformation is in turn driving IT transformation. So I think the key takeaway from all of that is that with all of these requirements, the 4 requirements listed here, the main point is that technology is no longer like this back office function. It's becoming one that is much more integral and important for the customer or consumer experience. One of the other trends we're seeing is data growth. And so every time I see one of these presentations, there's a graph about how many zillions of zettabytes and gigabytes and terabytes of data that's going to be accruing over the next several years. And so what we're seeing right now is there's 163 projected zettabytes worth of data growth in the next 5 years. And not only is that growth happening, it's also located in many different locations. So it could be on-prem in a data center, but it also could be off-prem in a cloud location or in a like as a service type of location. So with that, then the important thing is to have the ability to protect your data, and it needs to be a priority for all organizations. So when we look at small and mid-size businesses and look at those trends we just discussed, some of the challenges are that increase in data, but also where that data is actually located. And with small and mid-sized organizations, kind of have to do more with less, whether that's dollars or resources, people, IT departments. So that's driving requirements that are increasing time to value and giving ease of use for those solutions. But in addition to that is having the ability for cloud readiness, a converged solution. Hyperconvergence is a big thing. And basically that's giving you less complexity at a solution level, not just like at the component level. And then lastly, that cost and that ability to expand to the cloud for disaster recovery and for long-term retention, archival type of purposes. So when we look at Dell EMC from a data protection portfolio point of view, they are #1 in the data protection arena, both with purpose-built like appliances, but also with the software side of things. So when we look, in the past, EMC has protected the most valuable asset of companies around the world, that being their data. And so EMC brought patented solutions like their variable length dedupe to the market, and Dell Technologies now is continuing to build on that foundation with a product from the ground up to help these mid-sized organizations with their data protection requirements. And so the product is the integrated data protection appliance, the DP4400. So let's dive in and take a look at what makes this solution unique. So like I mentioned, DP4400, it's a converged solution. So basically it targets the protection requirements of, like we've talked about, small, mid-sized organizations, but also for remote office deployments. So it could be a much higher enterprise level organization in a remote office type of situation. It's a 2U form factor server solution that's built on PowerEdge technology, and it's delivering enterprise level protection at a smaller entry point. So as you can see here along the sides of the slide, it's offering backup, replication, recovery, dedupe, instant access, searching and analytics capabilities, as well as tight VMware integration. And on top of all of that, it's enabled with cloud disaster recovery, but also long-term retention, all within this single 2U appliance. Like I mentioned, it's built on PowerEdge server technology that Dell is known for, and it's a backup server, a software, and a target, all in this one appliance. And then lastly, you can also grow and scale capacity as your needs scale without any hardware upgrades. When we look at managing a solution like this, simplicity is key, and that involves whether you're managing backup policies, schedules, tasks, replication, that sort of thing. All of that is done in the IDPA through the system manager. And we'll dive into that a little bit later on a demo, but it's going to give you the ability to simplify your backups and automate tasks, monitor and manage and run reporting in your data protection initiatives. When we look at what the DP4400 is able to protect, it's providing the largest application ecosystem to protect many of these and all of these applications you see listed here, from physical workloads all the way to virtual workloads, but then also protecting in the cloud and supporting multiple hypervisors like VMware and Hyper-V. But I will say that the DP4400 is VMware optimized and offers that tight integration with not just VMware, but also SQL and Oracle. And it gives like administrators their native management tools so that they continue to use those familiar user interfaces that they use each and every day. So like I've mentioned, it's integrated and optimized for VMware. And what that essentially means is that you can protect 5 times more VMs in this singular 2U appliance. And with that tight integration, it empowers your VMware admins to perform most of these common backup and recovery tasks directly from vCenter. There's also automations around the whole VMware data protection stack you see listed here. And whether it's deploying a virtual machine, deploying the proxy, or moving the data around to protection storage. Lots of automation and optimization built in with VMware. As we've mentioned, the DP4400 is built on PowerEdge 14G servers. And the reason that's important, there's a couple things here, but one of them is that it's flash enabled and uses NVMe flash for instant access and restore use cases. And I'll dive into what instant access means and looks like a little bit later on. Another important thing is that the software architecture is designed for high performance and high efficiency, which is enabling 2 times faster backup windows and 7 times more backup streams. So when you take that performance and the 55-to-1 dedupe capability in the DP4400, you're getting 96 terabytes in a 2U appliance. It's not only giving you that performance and those 2 times faster backups metrics you see, but it also gives you the ability to protect about 5 petabytes of logical data. And when we talk about the cloud, the DP4400 is natively cloud enabled. And what that means is you can leverage cloud tier for long-term retention, both in public, private, or hybrid clouds. So that scales your capacity from 96 terabytes to about 288 terabytes of usable capacity. But on the cloud DR, the cloud disaster recovery side, you can spin up your virtual machines in AWS or Azure, and we'll talk about that here. So cloud disaster recovery, basically the virtual machine images are copied to AWS or Azure, and it allows for you to orchestrate your DR testing with 3-click failover and 2-click fail back to and from AWS or Azure to a new on-premise. So when you couple the deduplication of the DD4400, keep in mind that you're only transmitting unique data and compressed data, so you're able to reduce your bandwidth significantly. Now, I mentioned ROBO earlier. ROBO is remote office branch office. And so from a ROBO point of view, this can give you local data protection that is cost effective and efficient. And considering the fact that we're dealing with a small 2U appliance that's simple to deploy and manage, you can not only manage it locally, but you can also manage it remotely from like a central data center. And you can run restores and backups and that sort of thing. But it gives you the same capabilities that your central data center has at a remote office, where typically you have less IT resources. You can also do site replication from multiple different locations with the IDPA, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So when you look at the cost of protecting your data, the DP4400 is priced for a mid-sized organization. And as I've mentioned and shown, it can be upgraded incrementally, both on the actual appliance, but also in the cloud. So when you combine the capacity, density, the average dedupe rate of 55 to 1, in addition to the bandwidth reduction of 98%, you can protect 4 times more data in this 2U based appliance that gives you the lowest cost to protect. And it costs up to 80% less to protect than some other market alternatives. So when we look at more of the technical side and deep dive into what this is under the covers, I've said that it's based on PowerEdge servers, 14G servers. When we look at it from a technical point of view inside on the storage configuration, this is what is driving and supporting all the storage of the metadata and the actual backups themselves. So you can see here, there's some large SAS drives, and this is how they're configured. There's also a BOS card for running the VMware hypervisor, but then there's also the NVMe card and another 960 gig SSD for a cache. That NVMe card is going to be for instant access. And then if we go in deeper and look at each one of the virtual components, you can see here that what IDPA is built of is Data Domain Virtual Edition along with Avamar Virtual Edition. Those are the 2 core things, all based on VMware. Lots of other components, but you can see here the requirements that each one of these virtual editions requires. And so you can see the vCenter in there. You can see System Manager where all the backups are run, and basically the system is administered. So 2.5, the 2.5 code came out earlier this year in February or March. And so when you look at IDPA, if you're familiar with hyperconvergence and from a Dell EMC point of view, VxRail, there's a similar, there's similarities between these 2 products in that when it comes time to execute updates, software updates, you're downloading a singular package. and Dell EMC, Dell Technologies, has gone through and pre-validated the backup, or sorry, they've pre-validated the firmware upgrades into this singular package, so that 2.5 is upgrading each one of these components from the Avamar to the data domain to the data protection central, all the way down to the search. So they've gone through, determined, how to stage the backup. They run checks. They run those actual upgrades and then run a final check. So the main benefit here is that rather than you having to do all that work, it's integrated together and delivered in a way where it's much more simple for an end user to be able to manage that. When we look at some of the different deployment scenarios that have been tested and approved, you can see there's lots of different apps and clients like we've discussed. For more of a topological point of view, you can see here that if you're going to replicate, you have your primary IDPA in the middle. You can do the cloud DR or the cloud tiering up into the cloud. You can also replicate to other IDPA appliances. And when we talk replication, there's different types of replication that are supported. So standard replication is the default. But when we look at some of the other options there, we have policy-based replication, which is going to give you greater control because you can get you can create replication groups that have certain settings. So like priorities and how many backups to replicate and the retention on those, as well as destination and schedule. When we look at managed file replication, it's replicating and recovering files, and it's centrally located. Sorry, it's centrally configured and managed through the IDPA backup software. So if you're dealing with file replication, this is kind of the policy from a replication point of view that you would take a look at, because it's going to give you WAN efficient replication using the IDPA deduplication. And then lastly is an M tree replication. And an M tree is the logical partition of the IDPA's protection storage file system. So basically it's a destination directory for deduped data. And the reason this is important from a replication point of view is it gives you more granular space management, reporting, and more management, more finer grained management of that replication, snapshots, retention locking, that sort of thing. And again, from a WAN bandwidth point of view, it's going to avoid sending redundant data across the network. So those are the different types of replications, scenarios and policies. But when we look at the different topologies, here's a one-to-one where we have an IDPA that is the source and we have an IDPA that is the destination. And you can see that it is replicating the AVE metadata and the actual backup data. Another one is one-to-many, where you have an IDPA that is your source. You're replicating to 3 different IDPAs. That could be 3 different locations, a branch office. But then it also could be a many-to-one, where your different branch offices are replicating to your core data center. Now, I've talked about instant access and restore. And basically what instant access does is it leverages the NVMe inside of the DP4400. And in a urgent situation, or even in a test situation, rather than doing a recovery where all of the virtual machine data is copied from the IDPA back to your production storage, connected to your VMware, to your vCenter, added to your VMware stack, and then turned on, basically the instant access capability mounts the virtual machine directly. It copies it to the NVMe, and directly mounts that VM from the IDPA. So you don't have to wait for it to copy from your protection storage to your production storage. Now, with that NVMe, you can instantly access up to 32 VMs. It's going to give you 40,000 IOPS, 20 milliseconds of latency. So again, the benefit is you can instantly get to your virtual machine, but you can also mount it from the IDPA, get it up and running, and then vMotion it over without having any outage. So if we jump into the demo, let's see. There we go. Okay, so this is the kind of the landing page of, or the management page of the DP4400. And you can see here are all the different components internal to the IDPA. So again, you have the system manager where we do a lot of the executing and managing of the IDPA. You have the backup server, which is going to be your Avamar Virtual Edition. You have your protection storage, and you can see here the logo is the Data Domain Virtual Edition. You can see a lot of your specs around it, the fact that we have 48 terabytes available. We can see firmware versions, IP info. You can see the internal VMware that's hosting each one of these virtual instances. So from a under the covers point of view, this is kind of a look at all the different components that comprise the DP4400. Again, you can see if there's any health situations that you need to take a look at. And then from an upgrade point of view, this is what I was talking about, how you basically point to the upgrade location. It's going to be a singular file, and then execute and go from there. The system manager, if we go back to home, and I just have it opened up here in a tab. Let's see. So when you log into the system manager, you're going to land here on this dashboard. And from the moment you log in, you can see if there's anything that you need to address immediately. Like if there was an alert, we would see it right here. Again, you can see here our backups, our backup jobs are 83% successful. We could take a look at the one that was failed. We could click on it and it would take us right to it. You can also see storage capacity. Again, we're not using much as this is a demo system. So again, quick and easy to see if there's anything you need to take a look at. If we come down here to job activities, you can see here are the different backups that have run. So say backing up our vCenter virtual machines, and I'll dive into what that looks like here in a minute. But you can see here the activity completed. If there was an issue like this one, you could see that it failed, and you could dive in, or you could rerun that activity. You could view it to kind of figure out what was going on there. There's also extensive reporting capabilities where you can create these report cards, and you can select different time frames. But you can also do a forecasting, projecting based off of historical data, you know, what the future looks like from a storage point of view, from a utilization, that sort of thing. If we go to asset inventory, again, here are all the different assets we have from an IDPA point of view. But I really want to go to system management. So under system management, you can see here is our protection storage. This is the Data Domain Virtual Edition. Again, the backup server is our Avamar virtual edition. And so Avamar is where you actually execute and configure a lot of the backups and the backup policies. So I want to log into that real quick. So it's single sign-on enabled. So when you launch into it, it's going to bring us right to that management console. So if we expand this out here, there's also a dashboard. But let's go to backup policy. So when I go to backup policy, I want to select my vCenter virtual machines, and we'll let that load. Drop this down, virtual machines. So here is my vCenter VM backup policy. So I'm just gonna edit and show you what this policy, how it was built, and maybe make a few edits. So here's our name. Here's our proxy. We're just selecting the automatic proxy that was deployed. This is the singular virtual machine that is hosted in this demo environment. It's just a SQL server. And I can select what data set it is. So considering the fact that it is a Windows SQL server, we've selected Windows data set. But you could also select a VMware image data set. You can get creative with, whether you want to do full and differential or incremental backups. So you can also come down and select different plugins that you want to use for this. So the fact that we're using Windows, we've selected the Windows file system plugin. So lots of granularity in terms of the abilities you have and backing up intelligently, helping it understand what the data is so that you can get access to it more efficiently and effectively. From a schedule point of view, this is an on-demand backup, but we very well could select a daily schedule. I'm going to leave it as on-demand. You could tell it to, well, here. If we did daily, you can see that we would select daily, and it's going to run every day at 1 a.m. And then you would select add, and it would start, well, this date is off, but it would start every day running at 1. So I'm going to go back, leave it on demand. From a retention point of view, you can select the default retention, and you can create different policies under the policy creation portal or page over here, where they will show up for every single policy that you create from a backup point. So the default retention looks to be none, but if you were to do weekly, it's going to retain this backup for one week. And change it back to on demand. From a cloud disaster recovery point of view, this is where you would configure that. We don't have a cloud account, so I can't demo that, but you again would enable this, and you would select your DR target and any retention policy that you wanted to create or retain the backup there. So here it would retain the backup for 30 days in the cloud DR environment. And this is your summary page. So again, our SQL virtual machine, and that's what we've created a policy that is affecting this virtual machine. So if I wanted to run this back, because it is an on-demand backup, I could hit run here. And it says up here, successfully started. I can go to the activity pane over here under monitor and see that it is awaiting. You can see here, there's a couple completed backups from where I was testing it earlier. Is there a question? Okay, sounds like someone's off mute. So if we go back to our asset management, I want to restore one of those earlier backups that I did. And so if I select virtual machines, I select our SQL server, I can restore them. Now, like we've mentioned, like I've mentioned, there's a couple different restore options. And we'll select our disk. Now, from a restore option or where to restore this backup, we could overwrite the original virtual machine. We could restore it to a different virtual machine. We could restore it to a brand new virtual machine, or we could do instant access. Again, the main difference between instant access and this restore to new VM option is going to be when you restore it to the new VM, it is going to copy the data from the IDPA back to your production storage, whereas with instant access, it's actually mounting that virtual machine from the IDPA storage. So we're going to do instant access. We'll hit next. We'll call this Tech Tuesday instant access. Oh, and I also selected my vCenter. So we want to select vCenter 01. We want to put it in the discovered VM folder, put it in the .5 cluster. Again, our cluster resource pool. Confirm all that looks good, hit finish. So you can see the restore request was submitted. If we view activity, this is running. Now, if we go over to our vSphere client, if we give it a moment, it's going to restore, or not restore, but it's going to give us instant access to this SQL virtual machine. And again, you can still see our SQL backup that we ran on demand is in progress. You can filter this by time or duration as well. So, in a production environment, you're going to have a lot more variables in here that you can filter down to really hone in on what you're trying to see. And if we open our folder, you can see here we have Tech Tuesday instant access. So this is a virtual machine. We can power it on. While it is powering on, if we go to data stores, you can see that it is actually hosted on the Avamar Virtual Edition data store like we talked about. It's not copied to this vSphere production data store shared storage. And there we go. Here's our Windows SQL virtual machine that is running off of the DP4400. So that's just a quick glance at how you manage your backups, how you create the different policies, how to do a restore, what instant access looks like. So if we come back over, from a cloud disaster recovery point of view, since we couldn't demo that, I showed down there on the bottom right, you can see how easy it was to click enable and then select your DR target, again, configuring that retention policy. And then you can see the different backup policy here. The one in the middle that's highlighted has that backup group that includes a cloud DR function. When it comes time to initiate a test or a failure, again, you go to the Cloud DR tab under Asset Management, and then you select your DR options. And you can see all the different functions that you can do in terms of testing a failover or just running a test, and all that's done right from here. From a cloud tier point of view, you can create your policy, and you can configure the different members, whether it's every virtual machine or only certain virtual machines that you want to set up long-term retention in the cloud. You can configure that schedule, run different filters to make sure you're only executing on the data that's important. So as we start to wrap it up, the reason the DP4400 is a winner is, first off, it's faster with source side dedupe and the 7 times more backup streams with the 55-to-1 dedupe guaranteed, and this is guaranteed in the future-proof loyalty program that we'll take a look at next. With the largest application ecosystem, from the VMware integration with capacity on demand with software-based capacity upgrades and DR to the cloud with the cloud-native features of cloud tiering and cloud DR. That's why the DP4400 is a winner. And I just mentioned the future-proof loyalty program. So from an IDPA point of view, the future-proof loyalty program is investment protection that provides value for the whole lifetime of the solution, and it's available at no additional cost or higher maintenance price or higher product price. Like it's included, no additional cost. And from an IDPA point of view, that's a 3-year satisfaction guarantee. That's a hardware investment protection. There's predictable support pricing. There's this cloud-enabled model that we just talked about with the cloud tiering and cloud DR, and along with cloud mobility protection and the 55-to-1 data protection dedupe guarantee. 55-to-1 is a huge number, and it's only available with Dell EMC. So from a support and deployment point of view, Dell EMC support and the Dell EMC services, there's many options to deliver a unique customer experience. That is going to continue to add value much longer down the road. So from a deployment point of view, ProDeploy Plus, that's going to give you in-region, single point of contact from a project management point of view, on-site install, software config. It includes any assistance from a post-deployment point of view for 30 days, along with some training credits. From a support point of view, you have Pro Support Plus. This is going to get customers ahead of problems before they happen. And then residency. And residency services, they're going to give your customers technology experts that's going to help them optimize configurations, processes, procedures, just general knowledge to help your customers' staff. And they're going to help your customer accelerate that time to value from a new product purchase. And we've only been talking about the DP4400, but if you zoom out, there's a larger IDPA integrated data protection appliance portfolio. So DP4400 being on the entry small to mid-size business, but we can scale much larger to mid-size and larger enterprises for those larger backup requirements. So here's just a quick glimpse at some of the other options if you have a larger backup requirement. So thanks for your time today. Thanks for joining. Again, I said earlier when we were first starting, there's a lot of training presentations going on right now, so we appreciate you joining this one. Here is a list of all the upcoming Tech Tuesday presentations, so join next week. We're going to be talking about MX7000. My peer Seifa is going to be speaking and presenting. He'll be talking about Smart Fabric and the unique value that the MX7000 kinetic infrastructure has. So again, each Tuesday we're here until May 12th. But thanks for your time today, and I hope you have a great day.